we just talk about what we read and hear and not what the author is saying. Of course, there's always something lost in translation. On the other hand, because you kind of have to reduce the focus of, oh, did I get the right word, or how special is my poetic language at this point, you get a sense for a different level of drama, which is not only the poetic or literature side of language, but also the way the text interacts. I think the subtext that every line has, the subtext is probably even more obvious in a different language. Of course, you lose a lot, but you probably win a little bit. The very funny thing about what is international and what is local is that sometimes the most local is the most international and the other way around. I think the approach actually is almost 50% of the issue.
To listen to new voices with new perspectives, different upbringings, different cultures. And this is precisely the time for this. And I'm thrilled to be a part of this project.
Know what is an author's will, what he or she wants us to see or wants us to go through.
Some ways, yes, I think, but it doesn't mean that it's in any sense less important than it was before. I think the question is very often for us, for people who are dealing with introducing new contemporary plays abroad, for example, that we don't have all the, let's say, the new dramaturgy that we are really excited of and proud of is in a form that we are not able to translate or disseminate. Because it really stucks with one creative person or troupe, and or we can talk about body dramaturgy and musical dramaturgy and so on, which is not a printable text.
Accompanying people like a form of culture or form of society, but also I think it's just a genre of theater. And it is quite old, and I think it's very hard to innovate, or there is a big resistance, or like usually when people speak about dramatic text, then it has to have some form, and this form is pretty stale for centuries, let's say. And but I think like it's just one genre, and there are also other forms of text in theater, or like how theater can utilize text. So yeah, I don't know.
Also, maybe the dramatical text don't need to be traditional formally. Today, dramatical text can be anything, and I think beautiful example of this idea is this theater Rubín.
Talk with somebody creating something or in a process of creating. And they handled it really well with the gentle touches and not putting a pressure or putting their opinions, taste in it. So that's great, because it's hard to separate oneself from the work of other. But I also agree that mostly the experience of author is to be alone.
A boy wanted to stay, and his sister was persuading him to leave Crimea together with her, and in the end she persuaded and managed to take him away. And Natalka told me, you know, if it's no happy end, it will be more tragic and it will have more impact. And at first I thought, oh, I actually like happy ends, and it's based on a real story. But then I realized that actually when we see this story about Ukrainian kids who are stay in Russian families, stay in Russia, we usually see the stories of success. And these are really a minority of real stories. The majority of these kids, they do stay in Russia, and they might never come back to Ukraine. Their identity is being changed. If these kids are really small, they even forget they're Ukrainians. And this is really tragic. And then when I changed this and made it not happy end, I realized it was really, really good advice. And I think it made the story stronger.
I think it's important because sometimes you have too many doors open, and then you need to choose like which way will I continue. So that was great. And plus, Lisi suggested that I add some maybe points of explanation to the text, which
talk about it if this topic, which is based on a special Czech historical personality, if the text can communicate with someone who don't know, who don't nothing about it. So it was really good for me and helpful.
They need, or we need, and then to have more time to discuss it even between ourselves and with the translator. I think everyone invested in this project was like really invested, but what was the limitation was the time.
I was thinking yesterday, how on earth would you approach it in 6 days? It's not possible. You'd have to live with that text and talk to that playwright and live with that rhythm. You didn't maybe even know the rhythm because that was being created here locally by the artist who was delivering those verses. And that would all, you would have to be involved in that process, I think. So, yeah, I totally understand why you did what you did. It needed to happen that way. So it's about that richness of time, I think, that's been mentioned here before.